All right, so for lesson one, you can see that we have several different slides here. Let me change my pen. There we go. And the first slide you're going to have is, so it's, if you look here, actually, let me say this first. Students compare fractions with the same numerator or the same denominator. And each thing has two parts. So the first one is, I'm going to say 2-unit fractions with different denominators and ask which is greater and why. So I would say, which is greater, 1/3 or 1/5? Why? Now, because this is a more of a math talk type of slide, which is unusual for quick practice. Generally, it's a choral response. You can say, class, which is greater, 1/3 or 1/5? Think about it. Class, 1/3. They would all chorally respond 1/3, and then you can say, boys and girls, why? Who can defend it? Now, whether you turn that into a quick turn and tell your neighbor why, or Sally, why, and then have her defend it. The next slide shows the answer and shows the visual. So as Sally's defending it, she should have said something like, 1/3 is greater because the whole is broken into less parts, which means each part is bigger. So remember, the smaller the denominator, the larger the piece. So she should say something like that. You do the next example, which is greater, 2/3 or 2/5? Why? Boys and girls, class, and they would say either 2/3 or 2/5. In this case, it would be 2/3. Why? Turn and talk, or John, defend it. Okay, so John has to defend it prior to us skipping to that next slide. And again, he can talk about how the unit fraction, 1/3, is still greater than 1/5. So having 2 of the thirds is going to be greater than having 2 of the fifths. So notice all of these slides. You'll go through several examples. The idea is that it's quick. Get as many as you can in a 5-minute period, and then you're finished. When you get to lesson 2, you're going to have the same idea. So if I'm here, boys and girls, which is greater, 1/4 or 1/3? Think about it. Class, 1/3. Why? And so this would be where they're going to take these outlines and they're going to show us 1/3 versus 1/4. So now the student leader can do this, you can do this, but we use this if you're just projecting it and you want to draw on your whiteboard and circle it, print the slides, put it in your document camera, whatever works for you. So now explain if this is 1/3 and 1/4, and now students can defend why they think that. So it says, let's see why. We stretch the rectangle, the rectangular outliners, and put them on top. Explain now, move the outliners back. So we would move these back down here. And now we repeat that. Boys and girls, what's greater, 2/4 or 2/3? Class, 2/3. Why? And then someone would come up, they would show us their 2/4. They would resize this here to show 2/4. Then they would resize this to show 2/3. Boys and girls, defend. Turn and talk. So you're going to go through all of these examples. You move the outliers and then you go through the next one. So notice for lesson 1, a new slide was for each comparison. Now that we're in lesson 2, we're not going to do that. We just have the fraction strips to help us, and we have the problems on the far right-hand corner. So you continue this manner. So this would be lesson 2. Then you have lesson 3, lesson 4, lesson 5, and lesson 6. So each lesson has a dark blue slide and a light blue slide. Then you have, if you notice actually, that the light blue slide is comparing the same denominators but different numerators. Okay, so when you get to the light blue slide, which one's greater, 3/4 or 2/4? Class, they would respond 3/4. Boys and girls, let's show 3/4. 1/4. Now we have 2/4. Now we have 3/4. Boys and girls, let's show 2/4 in purple. 1/4. 2/4. Which one's greater? So notice that the denominators were the same, the numerators changed. In the dark blue slides, they all had different denominators. So we're comparing those size of those pieces. And obviously the same numerators. Okay, so now you get down to lessons 7 through 10, in which we're going to go into money. So we have the minute hand off to the side here. The hour hand is set at 12. Move the minute hand and use your 5 divisions to show what time it is at 10 minutes after the hour. So students would move their arrow and they would say to themselves, so on their own personal clock, they would have their own little paper clocks to do this. This is the one for the student leader. They would place that minute hand at the 2, and then the student leader could say, boys and girls, show me the clock. And everyone shows their clock at the same time, and they should be showing that it's 12:10. And then we would say, boys and girls, well, how do we know that it's 12:10? And someone should be saying, well, because 10 is 2 5s, so the minute hand points to the 2. We know that this is 5:10. 10 minutes divided by 5s is 2. Type the answer. Boys and girls, what answer should be here? Class, 12:10. Boys and girls, let's check our answer. Remove the blue cover. We would delete it. We would get 12:10. Now show where you move the hour hand to show 12:10. Did you move it a little bit, about halfway, or close to 1? So students on their own clock should show that we moved it just a little bit. The student leader would say, boys and girls, did you move it a little bit, about halfway, or close to 1? Class, and they should say, a little bit. We delete the green and it says a little bit. So now I can use the undo arrow up at the very top to put all of those covers back into place, to move my minute hand, and to replace all of those boxes there. Okay, so we would go to the next one, put the hour hand at 12. So everyone does this on their own clock. Move the minute hand and use your 5 divisions to show 55 minutes after the hour. So students should be thinking, if it's 55 minutes after the hour, and we're counting by 5s, 55 divided by 5, where would I put my minute hand? All the students put it on. Maybe they put their clock up to their heart when they're ready. The student leader sees that everyone's ready. The student leader say class, and everyone shows them their clock. And the student leader would then move this to show that it should be pointing at 11. The student leader would say, then class, what time is it? And the class would say 12:55. The student leader types the time. Of course, a student could write it on their whiteboard. We just want students practicing saying the time, writing the time, and then of course using their divisions to help them figure out the minute hand. Boys and girls, move the hour hand. Would it move a little bit, about halfway, or close to 1? And student leaders, or all the students, should move their hour hand. If we're going this way, there we go. And the student leader would say class, and the whole class should say close to 1. So I can delete this, show that, use all my undo arrows, put everything back. Now, your second option is, if students don't have their own personal clocks, is to just do that all choral response. Boys and girls, where would I move the minute hand, right? So when we say, if we're going to do 55 minutes after the hour, what should the minute hand be pointing to? Think about it. Class, everyone would say 11. Boys and girls, who can defend why it's 11? Call on Sally. 55 is 11 5s, so the minute hand points to the 11, or however she would like to say that. Boys and girls, should I move the hour hand a little bit, about halfway, or close to 1? Think about it. Class, close to 1. Boys and girls, what time is it? 12:55. So you can do the whole thing as a choral response and not have students working on their clock to put it there. That's up to you. It's about the amount of time you have and the supplies you have. So if you are feeling like you want them to do one on their clock, or maybe you do all of these choral response, and then the last one they have to show you on their clock, or have to do it on a whiteboard, that's a great alternative. Notice that these are all that lavender color in the background. That means that's all lesson 7. When you get to lesson 8, you're going to change because the color of the clock changes. Notice that we add in one final slide here. So now let's tell time as minutes before the hour. Think about how many minutes add up to 60. I will point to a digital clock time. At the signal, you say how many minutes before the hour. Boys and girls, think about it. Class, and they would say 1 minute before. Okay, so 1 minute before 1. Class, think about it. Class, 21 minutes before 1. Okay, you delete the box, you check your answer, put the undo arrow, you'd go back. So you'll add this slide to the end of lesson 8. Notice now that you get to the same thing. You have all lavender slides, then you all have these pink slides, and then you have a practice telling the time before the hour. So you'll continue to do that for each lesson. You can notice that you have all of those slides. You can choose, I think it's a lot of slides, like here's all the lavender slides, and then notice that you have those pink slides. I actually think as I'm looking at this now that this would be all of the lessons. So lesson 8 would start with this orange slide, and then you would have all of these slides, and then this is lesson 9. And then you'd have all of these slides, and then you'd have lesson 10. If you can fit that many in 5 minutes, go for it. Otherwise, I'd probably break it up and do lavender one day and these pink slides the next, and then alternate for this orange slide. But up to you. All right, my friends, that's it. Have fun with quick practices.